Hey guys, this is Rudy Bester for Bester Investor. Some of you know me as one of the founding members of the Memory Trees Charitable Foundation, and others know me as the fund manager for MTC Equity Partners. And some of you might even know me through my hedge fund and investment activities. But what I wanted to chat with you about today is ESG. And I was looking at my notes here, so I have my notebook. So if you wondering why I'm looking away or looking down, on September the 24th, 2019, I did a presentation on values investing at an Opal conference in New York City, and we were chatting about a whole variety of different things, and the topic of ESG investing, or ESG as an investment philosophy, is quite pervasive and enduring, and it kind of surfaces in every discussion we have. So what I thought I would do today, especially since it's been a long time since I had a chance to speak to a room full of impact investors, is talk a little bit about impact investing, specifically from the point of view of ESG. Now, I'm not here to make a judgment call in terms of whether these things are right or wrong, or whether the experts are absolutely correct in terms of their understanding of certain issues that might prompt you to align your investments according to a certain strategy or not. That is not my intent. What I do want to do is just take a little bit of time and talk about ESG in general in terms of what it is and how it might work. So I'm going to just remove myself from the screen entirely so that we can kind of go through this presentation. I have a few slides. It's reasonably short, but I do want to talk about ESG, and then, of course, as it relates to impact investing. So what I'm going to do is first just share some thoughts with you. So in the first place, here's a quote from David Gardner, one of the co-founders of the Motley Fool. He says, "Make your portfolio reflect your best vision for your future, or for our future. Always be thinking ahead, be optimistic, think about the world that you may want to create, because sure enough, your dollars and mine, our capital, is helping to shape that world." I think we can all be in agreement that that is true. So let's go to what the experts say. And the experts in this particular instance are represented by a variety of different sources, certainly reputable sources. So NASA, NOAA, and IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They look here at things like population growth, currently approximately 8 billion people, expecting approximately 10 billion people by 2050. The demand for food and energy obviously is something that's going to create some pressure on scarce resources. It has a negative environmental impact, population growth. Of course, we know that most of the population growth will be in Asia and in Africa, so there is going to be even more of a burden on those particular areas where the population growth is going to be quite substantial. Then climate change is a topic that comes up all the time. We see, according to NASA and the NOAA, certainly they say CO2 is rising 10 times faster than any sustained rise in the past 800,000 years. We look at things like deforestation, and specifically for commodities: soy, palm oil, beef, and timber. 15,000 square miles of tropical land are destroyed every year. And the source there is the Union for Concerned Scientists. In a study they did in 2020, they say human intrusion creates biodiversity hotspots. There's disruption and disturbance and ecosystem degradation. As I said a minute ago, I'm not here to make a judgment call and to critique the statements that they're making. I'm just sharing the information. You make your own judgment call in terms of what you think is correct or not. Then there's consumption and production. There's increased demand for animal proteins, and more than 50 billion pounds of animals are consumed. Sorry, more than 50 billion animals are consumed on an annual basis. It's unsustainable from production and consumption point of view. We need to reduce food waste and increase plant-based. Of course, that's debatable. We need to tackle overuse and misuse of antibiotics. And then the last one that they highlight here is health and well-being to ensure healthy lives and combat communicable diseases. There's going to be an emergence of infectious diseases, unprepared health systems, and dislodged viruses. Of course, in the past year, we have seen some of this, whether it's man-made and created in a lab in Wuhan, or whether it's something that occurred naturally. Once again, is not my job to tell you whether it's right or wrong or where it came from. I'm reporting, you decide. What about climate change? Now, this is a topic, of course, that has morphed. Initially, it was global warming, then it became climate change, and you have a variety of international agents who have jumped on board and said, not only is the climate changing, but we're all going to die, and we need to figure out how to make everything more sustainable. I don't think anyone necessarily argues with the concept of saying the climate changes on an ongoing basis. There is certainly debate in terms of carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, not in terms of it being unprecedented, but in terms of the actual impact that it has, because remember that carbon dioxide is actually plant food. So arguably the more carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere, the greater the yield. And people who farm in especially hothouses will tell you that they actually pump carbon dioxide into those greenhouses in order to improve their yield. But these are some of the facts that the smart people tell us. So greenhouse gases are happening 10 times faster than in any sustained period during the past 800,000 years. We need to stabilize greenhouse gases and the concentrations to prevent dangerous and anthropogenic interference with the climate system. We must listen to the Earth's best scientists, and climate change is moving faster than what we are. Staying below 1.5 degrees in Celsius requires a rapid, far-reaching and unprecedented change to all aspects of society. So I'd be interested to learn and hear some of your comments in this regard, because arguably we are more aware today of some of these issues than what we have ever been in the past. What does ESG actually mean? So E and S and G are three completely separate things which are somewhat interestingly tied together in terms of being one investment thesis or philosophical investment thesis. And whether you agree once again with E, whether it equals S or E equals G, is once again debatable. If you lump them all together, this is what it really means. So the traditional sort of book value prior to including ESG includes environmental, which is air and water pollution, waste management, energy efficiencies, and CO2 emissions. Those are four different things too, although you can obviously tie them together because they are sort of more or less related. Then the second part that comes in is social, customer privacy, labor health and safety, training and development, and product safety. So at a glance, you can already tell that social and environmental are not necessarily the same thing, nor are they easily linked together. But yet here we have E and S, and then we include G, which is governance. Governance really is the domain of the board of a large corporation. The board is responsible for governance, and the executive and management are responsible for the operational management of the company. But here we talk about leadership. In other words, the direction of the operational management, the executive pay, shareholder rights, audits, and internal controls. And at a glance, you do not have to be a rocket scientist to see that environmental does not equal social, does not equal governance. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because it is fair for us to say that a company may score very weak points on one of these three criteria and still score off the charts and very well on the other two. So now you say to yourself, I may have an investment which is coming in at a really high score on social and governance, but poor on the environmental issue. So are you still going to invest? Yes or no? The thesis behind this for ESG investors specifically is the question that I posted at the bottom, which is limitations on traditional financial analysis. In other words, do we need to include ESG on every investment decision we make or not? You can be the judge of that, and you can tell me in the comments. What about the actual spectrum of capital? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go a little bit from right to left, because right at the bottom it says the intention to generate measurable positive impact access for underserved populations. That would be sort of the end goal and sort of the first prize. But if we work our way backwards from this little graph that I have on the screen here, and we look at ESG in the middle, this is the risk framework to protect value, and ESG straddles the financial return focus, avoiding harm, benefiting all stakeholders. Now, once again, this is a slide where you may want to pause the presentation, look at the entire slide and say, where do I fit and what is it that I do? But I do not feel that it is fair to say that traditional does not include any or cover any of the good values that are related to being ethical or having a focus on environmental, sustainable, social and governance, sustainability itself, and impact. Impact investing per se looks at a number of different areas. So when you are an impact investor, the objective is to actually make a positive impact. So once again, you can say, are these things the same? And you guys are the experts, so you can tell me. Is impact investing equal to ESG investing? Are they different things? I've already mentioned that E does not necessarily equal S, does not necessarily equal G. Does ESG as a basket of philosophical focus impact equal impact investing, or is it something different? Impact investing, unlike ESG, looks at sort of almost a broader range of different investment theses or hypotheses in terms of investing: global warming, pollution, waste, biodiversity loss, health issue, gender equality, poverty, inequalities, and then you could say, why now? So when we look at impact investing sort of in isolation, what are the four things that we are looking for as an impact investor? Intentionality, additionality, materiality, and measurability. Now, the Global Impact Investing Network made this statement, and they said growing awareness of impact investing will require mutual fund managers to think creatively about how to select and manage publicly traded companies for positive impact. So the focus there in terms of being mutual fund managers is probably a little bit limiting, because some of the fund managers who manage hedge funds, ETFs, etc., probably have a sort of assets under management portfolio which is equal to many of the mutual funds, even though that would be an important area. But what they are really trying to do is to say, let's force these mutual fund managers to think creatively about how to select and manage publicly traded companies for positive impact. But we do not want positive impact to be a gray area. It needs to be defined. And then applying impact, defining criteria to listed equities. So who makes the rules? Because as a fund manager, you might listen to expert number one and ignore expert number two. So there's some vagueness in the concept and in the area of impact investing, which isn't necessarily applicable to any company. But consider this. So these are some questions and comments that I have. So is ESG the future, or is it a fad? So this is an area where you can enlighten me in terms of what you think. Is this going to be something that's going to be with us for quite some time? Or is this perhaps something that's going to fizzle out over the next decade or so, and then we see where we go? I've mentioned a couple of times that E does not equal S, does not equal G, and nor is ESG necessarily ethical. If my investment is in a corporation that has super scores on social and governance, but lags in terms of the environment, does that mean I should avoid the investment? Or they may have excellent governance and they're very focused on the environment, but their social governance or social management issues are not that great. Does this fit within my portfolio or not? Who makes that decision? ESG is a process. It's not a type of fund. So if you say I'm investing in a particular fund because it's an ESG fund, that would be sort of probably theoretically anyway incorrect, because it should be a process, because it should be evolutionary from the point of view that it changes on an ongoing basis. ESG supports better informed investment decision making, or does it? Right? So in other words, where exactly do you draw the line between what is a better informed investment decision or not as it relates to ESG? What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to wrap it up and say ESG stands for environmental, social, and corporate governance. ESG investors examine criteria within these three categories to identify companies that perform well using ESG-related metrics. So, guys, sort of on that note, that's sort of a 50,000 foot flyover of ESG and impact investing. And ESG and impact investing are not necessarily the same thing. And ESG, by definition, as I've said 3 times, does not imply that E equals S equals G, right? So when it comes down to it, you can almost say, if I have to make an investment decision based on ESG criteria, do I need to score high on E and S and G, and at the same time match it to my values investing investment thesis or criteria in order to make the investment, yes or no? So this is not an easy discussion to have, and it's not as if there's one particular answer that is correct or not. So on that note, what I'm going to do is hand the microphone over to you, and you can let me know in the comments what you think and where exactly your allegiance lies in terms of making these decisions as it relates to ESG and impact and values investing. So this is Rudy for Best Investor signing off, saying thanks for watching. Bye-bye.